I went there. Oh, let's get this show on the road. You are listening to, watching, catching up on YouTube, Jfabe. It's episode 2 of Jfabe on Twitch.
Oh, Twitch.
I don't know how loud that music is. Can you hear it, Jay?
Very clearly.
Oh, wow. Overly clearly?
No, it's alright.
Fair play. That's a bit of DMX there. Get you all in the mood. Obviously, our thoughts
for WrestleMania.
Exactly.
You know.
I mean, what a year! Everyone's dying. I mean, DMX. Sorry to hear it. Guy's a legend.
Happens all the time, right?
Well, apparently not always. AJ, Mr. Dodging Death, right there somehow. Someone's going to explain that at some point, I'm sure. Marvel dimension, right? Got a time cube. Oh, dear me. We're going to be talking about NXT TakeOver. NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver. We're going to be doing that. You might have noticed that I've templated us out. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. All around us. Just
professionalism.
What you say?
Good old professionalism.
I know, it's as professional as it gets. This is. I mean, yeah. I think we're smashing it, mate. I think we're smashing it. So, yeah, Stand and Deliver happened at the WWE Performance Center. They're calling it the Capital Wrestling Center, of course, because of all of that. Probably, or maybe, one of the last shows that WWE produce outside of an arena with a live audience in it. I mean, do we know what WWE's plans are after WrestleMania? Because that's in front of an audience. Do we know whether they're going on tour, or what's your understanding, Jay?
I have no understanding. There's not been
Excellent.
anything online about it, so I do not know. Nothing at all.
Cutting edge, guys.
I would assume that Raw's going to be in front of a crowd as well, so
yeah,
I'm sure they're selling tickets now as well as AEW, so I think
yeah,
the rest of in America is going to be back on track like pretty soon.
It's interesting. I'm very interested to see how it goes and see what WWE do. Just realised I was experimenting with pan before we started. Just going to pan myself back to the centre because, you know, we're taking it slow here because it's WrestleMania weekend, and Jay was like, "Hey, Rich, let's do Twitch. I think we should move this to Twitch." And I was just like, "Oh, okay. Thanks for that." Yeah. And then Taz beamed me up on his ship and was like, "Oh, I've already set you up a Twitch." Sorry, I'll do an impression of him. "I'll send you up to Twitch." There you go. Bang on. Nailed it. And that was it. That's what happened. That's what happened.
You sounded more like Ted Turner than you did Taz. Just gonna point that out.
What are you talking about? That's the impression I've always done.
I'll send you up to Twitch. To Twitch.
Whoopie-doo, my name's Taz. That's how he does it, right?
Yeah, that's totally how Taz is. Yeah.
Okay, right. Cool. Yeah, let's move on. Oh, dear me. Shenanigans, guys. Shenanigans. Bits of business. Let's get us started. We're going to talk about TakeOver. It was a 2-night show. It was the first 2-night TakeOver that there's been, I believe. Is that correct, Jay?
It is the first ever 2-night NXT TakeOver. That would be spot on.
Yeah, awesome. So lots of interesting things going into this. Some people say that the second night may have been better than the first. I think one of us included. However, some of us might not necessarily fully agree with that and might feel that they both deserve equal billing as amazing pieces of wrestling. I think the main thing we've got to ask, though, and the main question that we kind of came into this with was, has NXT lost it, or is this them reclaiming their previous position? Jay, overall, let's start with rather than going match by match straight out, in fact, shall we? Let's save that question for the end. Let's go straight in. Pre-show, Zoe Stark, Toni Storm, night 1, April the 7th.
Totally didn't watch that.
Me neither. Let's move on. Match 1, Pete Dunne, Kushida, singles match. Lasted 10 minutes, 39 seconds. It actually, the amount that they managed to get in during the limited amount of time that they had, because we were scared originally. We were quite concerned that you'd get these...
I thought they would maximise their time, and they definitely did that. They went out there and maximised their time.
That's the thing.
They deserve 10 minutes more, that's the thing.
They did deserve 10 minutes more, and I think the story would have been better told with 10 minutes more. I mean, ultimately, what you ended up with was a Greco-Roman, almost European-style approach to the first kind of third of the match. This is obviously indicative of Pete Dunne's time wrestling across Europe, as well as Kushida's time working with Rev Pro whilst he was in New Japan Pro Wrestling, so that was reflected quite nicely. These were clearly two very well-travelled ring veterans. This kind of, as time went on, moved into a more British strong style kind of approach, and then as the match kind of reached a crescendo, it entered this hybrid British strong style, Japanese strong style kind of mix that was just... If you needed a tour through popular wrestling within the last 10 years, especially on the indie scene, these two provided that within 10 minutes and 39 seconds. It was a masterclass. Jay, thoughts?
I think you just covered it all, Rich. Bye, everybody.
I'll just do that 6 more times and we'll go home, mate.
It was fast-paced, technical, paced really well. I really enjoyed the hoverboard lock as well, where Pete Dunne put his hands behind his back to stop that. That was a really nice block. But there was still piping in crowd noise. And clearly the crowd was going against that, and then that's what they should do. Just to make it stop. But you covered pretty much most of it over there, Rich.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would go so far as to say that, because obviously night 2, Santos Escobar versus Jordan Devlin, potentially a better match, got more time to breathe, but if you were brand new to NXT, were like, oh, NXT have got a big show, on Wednesday on TV, let's start off and just see what it's about. I don't think you could get a better match that explains NXT in 10 minutes than this match. I genuinely don't. Would you say that's true?
I would say it doesn't really explain NXT. It's just taken NXT to a new level with the style of wrestling that they produce within it. So yeah, if you're saying they're taking it back, then yes. If they put those two in the forefront of NXT and put them forward into a title picture of any title picture, they could really take NXT to new heights.
Definitely so, but I mean, it shows the professionalism and the ability of both Kushida and Pete Dunne, if I'm utterly honest, is the fact that you can put them on the curtain jerker for what is effectively a curtain jerker for a curtain jerker, because it's literally the first match of the weekend, and for them to come out with that, probably given the least amount of time, definitely given the least amount of time of all of the matches that precede it outside of pre-shows, and what will definitely be the least amount of time probably given to any one match this weekend, other than the typical WrestleMania squash match.
And two top wrestlers in the company. The best thing to do when watching WrestleMania is just think of that match and see how much time will the people get and if they maximise their time or not, because I don't think they will.
I don't think
Not
anybody.
as well as they did.
Yeah, I don't think anybody could maximise their time quite as well as they did. It was a masterclass in how to take what you've been given as a single start and really run with it, and they were both so giving to each other as well. What a way to really start this process. And I say process because that's what WrestleMania can feel like sometimes, a long drawn out process.
And just made it longer.
Any thoughts? Any thoughts? Any other thoughts that you want to carry away from that before we move on?
They need a title and drops in there. If they're gonna have a feud, then they need a title thrown in easily.
I think
maybe a ladder match, because for some reason I really like ladder matches, but no, they don't need a ladder. They can just go out there and they can just destroy it anytime they go out there together. So yeah, just drop a title in there somewhere.
You and your crazy ladder matches. I think from these two, they were the ones that I looked at the most during this weekend and thought, or these couple of matches, and thought they don't really need much, but they need something. Because if they continue just putting this situation where they're just putting out bangers on any other wrestling card in the world, that would be top of the bill. But on this wrestling card, NXT, WWE, there's just something that needs to take it more in that entertainment direction. I'm not quite sure what that is, because every time I look at an NXT star and I immediately think of them with Vince's mind, and I think, oh, okay, well, Pete Dunne, he's British, he's probably going to be, wearing a hard hat and, wandering down to the ring.
And also giving a bulldog.
Yeah, given a bulldog and all of those kind of things. Kushida, of course, he needs a samurai manager who's basically Mr. Fuji, and a losing streak.
I find it really impressive that you can just touch his fake clock on his wrist and the lights turn on. I mean, how do you do that?
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I mean, we have seen some crazy shit here on this show, but that is some next level tech. So, what are you drinking, Jay?
Oh, San Miguel. It's all right.
Jay's got some San Miguel going on
the Wrestlemania weekend.
Well, I mean, it's necessary. It's necessary. Of course, tonight there is Wrestlemania. That will be Wrestlemania Night 1. We're not going to do night by night on Wrestlemania because, quite frankly, we have lives. But we might actually watch together over PlayStation Network, depending on how sober and awake I am. But either way, we will be coming to you guys on Tuesday live here on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/Jfabe Wrestling Podcast. We're also available on YouTube, and we usually try and drop the YouTube on the same day that we've recorded the Twitch. A little bit of work for me in the background, but then all of this is Jay just turns up with a beer. He just smashes it, mate. He just smashes it every time. That's the star power of Jay, though. He can do that. So yeah, he can't tell how sarcastic I'm being. Look at that. It's fine. I love this stuff. Dear me. But yeah, no, it's yeah, that's where we're going to be. We're also, obviously, you're listening to us potentially. If you're just listening to the audio-only version, you can hear that on anchor.fm/Jfabe. My name is at the bottom of my screen. It is, of course, Rich at Not a Time Duke. And, of course, I am on Twitch, currently streaming GoldenEye HD as Shmup Yours. That is something worth watching. Have a lot of fun on that show. Jay is... What did you say?
That would be worth watching.
Well, it's on Shmup Yours' channel for the next few days. Tell you about GoldenEye. I used to just launch through it when I was a kid, right? I sat down, I thought, this is going to take like 45 minutes, 50 minutes for me to just go through like normal agent mode. It's the HD version running on original Xbox hardware, but they haven't changed anything. 4 hours. Did you know how hard that game is at the end? It is a fucking nightmare, mate. Jay is also available on Twitter at I am not a robot. The O's in robot are replaced with zeros. If you're wondering why they look slightly odd on that font, it's because Jay replaced the O's with zeros in robot because Jay's cool. And
just at the end of my whatever it's called again, handle.
Yeah. It's just
them in robot instead.
So you're definitely not a robot now, are you?
Definitely not a robot, no.
No. Okay. Well, he's looking pretty human today, definitely. So Definitely Jay. Definitely Jay. That could be a name for you, mate.
Definitely Jay.
Definitely
I think
Jay.
it might have been.
Dear. We're also
Can you change it to Definitely Jay, please?
we're also available on YouTube. That is where you might be watching this now if you're watching this in the future. Time travelers, hello. Right, next match.
Do we even do that? Do we even do that anymore?
What, time travel? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we could. Maybe.
We'll see. Bronson Reed, Isaiah Scott, Cameron Grimes, LA Knight, Dexter Loomis, and Leon Ruff in a six-man gauntlet eliminator match with specific 3-minute settings, which we weren't aware of, were we, going into this?
I think this is where I was trying to go with it, but I completely forgot it. So it's like a Royal Rumble, but a gauntlet match, and then they all come in, and then it turns into a multi-man match. Basically.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, WCW may have done this at one point, kind of on their way into one of the War Games events.
I'm pretty sure I've seen this in TNA as well.
I mean, I think
they haven't really with it. They've just copyrighted the name of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fairly obvious that they didn't want to go the full hog like when Vince McMahon decided that was the best thing since sliced bread for 3 weeks and decided to put it at the end of every single show. Because in those kind of... Sorry, there's Ricky Starks barking in the background. Taz left him here from, back in the day. He's just barking.
Fix him up.
I can't blame him. He's always fucking interrupting him, isn't he? Right? I mean, he's always interrupting me now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have to feed him and water him. It's a bit of a nightmare, if I'm utterly honest. So yeah, I mean, if you have like a traditional, if you have a bit of a traditional kind of gauntlet match, then it's kind of you're looking at kind of an hour of time because everybody wants to get some time. You know what I mean? So this seemed like a more logical way of approaching the entire affair, to be honest.
They've had a few good gauntlet matches now. They've had a few pretty recent, actually. They use it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was the famous Kofi Kingston one and all of that, but that wasn't timed, was it? Back in those days, when Vince McMahon was all over it.
This is more of an NXT thing.
Well, it's not a bad idea because obviously it lasted 23 minutes and 14 seconds. We still got plenty of everyone, and as the stakes went up, it got a lot more chaotic. I'm going to be first to start talking about Dexter Loomis, who on the last show, episode 1 of Jfabe on Twitch, I mentioned that he might trip over the top rope and break his leg, and what happened?
He tripped over the top rope and then he broke his leg.
He literally nearly tore the fucking thing out of his socket. Like, I mean, I don't want to say that. Like,
I have no idea how you called that.
It's because he's so fucking injury prone. I was just like, there's no possible way he's not going to have a big match with 6 people in it and not either be out of position or in a situation, because he's great one-on-one and he's got something, but he's got that big man curse. Like, Mark Henry had it.
He used to be that big. He used to be really skinny. He's been perfecting this character since TNA, like for years. It's where he first started.
What was his name back in TNA?
Samuel Shaw.
Samuel Shaw. Okay.
That's his real name. You're wrong. He was like an extreme sports guy, and he went into wrestling.
And then slowly got more and more obsessed.
Yeah. And more obsessed, and just really went into the character. Probably developed it more when he went to Performance Center. Yeah, I think he was in there a few years before he got put into any live shows or anything like that. So, yeah, he's probably just perfecting his character.
Yeah, my understanding is that back in about 2013, on November 21st, during an Impact Wrestling event, it was Turning Point to be exact, he decided that his name was Samuel Shaw, and he kind of went a bit of a Patrick Bateman way, very American Psycho with it, and since then he's been kind of building around this character, which I think makes sense for him, definitely. But he has got this big man issue where, how did everyone else do anyway?
How did everybody else do? Leon Ruff and Swerve, they came up fire, didn't they? So Leon Ruff came out, got thrown out by Swerve, and then they went into this whole I'm Spider-Man thing, and jumping off the barriers, and just really just taking where Pete Dunne and Kushida left off.
Yeah, I mean, what you saw effectively was the majority of the flippy-do, high-flying, and the pace of the match being very much dominated by Swerve and Leon Ruff. They were pretty much
3 minutes.
Very much so, but then even as the match continued, Isaiah Swerve Scott, he was the person who was always pushing the narrative of the match forward. He was the one coming in and breaking up the bits that were starting to slow the match down in pace and kind of adding to that. So he played that third character in the usual kind of triple threat match dynamic. He played that really well, I felt, and he kept on jumping in and being that third man in order to. So that was very, very good. I mean, the big kind of
Swerve's really impressive. I mean, in MLW he was impressive, but coming over to NXT, I don't know, they've just really brought something out of him that it needed bringing out of him. I didn't know what that was, but they've done it.
Yeah, that's fair. It's character.
It really, really does make him shine.
I think it's character work, because I found him very uninteresting when he first appeared. You know, he was just one guy in a sea of guys like him, and then over time he's kind of elevated what he does to a degree where I enjoy his work as a heel. I believe it's an honest emotion that he's feeling when he's feeling it, and I like his interplay with, especially with more kind of standard kind of white meat baby faces like Leon Ruff, or you know, your characterless kind of, not characterless, that's the wrong word, but your pure as the driven snow kind of characters, and he's there kind of raising that antagonism, and also his interactions with Cameron Grimes really, really good. Cameron Grimes currently got the a kind of Texan version of the $1 Million Man gimmick going off, a backwater $1 Million Man, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he became rich, didn't he? So.
Well, exactly.
In real life,
and that's hard to do. It's hard to become rich. How did he become rich in real life?
GameStop, apparently.
Oh, he did.
The whole GameStop thing.
He did some GameStop stuff. Okay, that's interesting. Good for him.
But when he came out, I'm sure you told me that as well. Maybe I'm wrong. But
I may have done. I forget a lot at the moment.
So when he came out, he got piped and booed, but the crowd was cheering him. So
I found that the crowd. Do we know what's going on with the crowd? Because they were going the exact opposite of what WWE were pumping in throughout this show. In fact, I listen in studio quality headphones. That's what these are. They're Sennheisers. They're there to pick that kind of stuff up, so I can often hear what's going into the feed for the commentators. So I very often hear producers counting down, that kind of stuff. It's muffled, but I can usually make out what they're saying. And I remember during night 2, Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Cole, there was a chant that they didn't like on. I think it was "Holy shit," and I actually heard the command to turn down the studio crowd and turn up the "That was awesome" chant just after they went through the ramp. You can actually. Yeah. Well, you can actually hear that on the headphones if you do use headphones. But yeah, it's.
There was a chant that he still vibed as well in that one.
They also chanted what? Sorry.
He's still violent.
Oh wow.
Adam Cole when he turned the chairs around.
Do we know anything about that crowd? Do we know anything about that audience? Because they weren't your standard NXT. They couldn't have been.
Not a clue. No, I don't
know. Bronson Reed eventually kind of won the day. We haven't talked about LA Knight yet. Do we need to?
Well, he comes out, takes a lot of shit, and then he gets his ass handed to him. That's
Cool.
his gimmick at the moment.
Yeah.
Should have came 5 years earlier. It's your own fault, mate.
Yeah, that's fair. Bronson Reed eventually won, which meant that he was going on to face Johnny Gargano on the second night for the NXT North American Championship. Total match length was 23 minutes, 14 seconds. Jay, what were your thoughts overall on this match? Did you enjoy it? Did you feel that there was better things they could have done?
Really well. There was no botches, were there? Apart from that one that Samuel Shaw had. Well, I'm remembering his real name and not his NXT name.
Dexter Loomis. I mean, Dexter Loomis's wasn't necessarily a botch. I mean, he was eliminated shortly after that, and it wasn't clear whether he was injured or not at all. But it was one hell of a tumble. So I hope that obviously there's no real problems there. But no, all in all, I enjoyed that match. It didn't feel like I was watching the longest match of the night. I can tell you that, but I was. So
it really well.
In fact, it was the second longest match of the entire 2-night period, and it just the pacing was fantastic.
Absolutely, no, agree with that.
After this, of course, Walter faced Tomasso Ciampa in a singles match. Tassimo. So. Walter faced Tomasso Ciampa in a singles match for the NXT United Kingdom Championship in a match that lasted 1 second shy of 17 minutes. Jay, first off, how good is it to see Walter at an event like this?
Well, I think the question is Walter the best heel in the business right now?
I would go so far as say he's one of them, definitely. If it comes to Raw in-ring and just presence, then almost definitely. I mean, that guy he's just so good at what he does. He's got that aura about him as well.
And the way he approaches each different match is completely different to how he would approach. Well, just every single match is different. Like, you don't see him come in and do. You get his standard moves, but you don't see him in the normal formulation. He always switches his formulation up, and he doesn't really have a finisher.
I mean, definitely for a man who is 33 in a day and age when wrestlers are having careers well into their 50s, to have him so perfectly embody the prize fighter gimmick in the way that he currently does is just amazing. To be able to do it in WWE in an age where everybody is 50-50 booked. Absolutely everybody. Walter is an exception. And that is...
Would still say this 50-50 booked. It was believable that Tomasso Ciampa could win because of where he broke the table with his hand. So his hand was injured, and obviously Tomasso Ciampa jumped on that. So that gave him the advantage that he needed. And Tomasso Ciampa really pulled it out for this one. He was no longer old man Ciampa, and he was definitely back as the Black Heart.
Yeah, definitely.
He was living that character easily.
Definitely. He did, of course, re-enter the Black Heart kind of mold. And to be honest, if you look at the timeline, it has only been 2 years. It's been 2 years and one surgery. So it's not actually. He literally all he's done is grown his hair out during the pandemic and then started losing. So all he had to do was shave his head and get his trench coat out again. But ultimately, that shows how good he is with character work, and that shows just. I mean, his mannerisms were closer to the Tomasso. I want to say the Tomasso Ciampa of old, but I mean it was so recent that they haven't even changed his Wikipedia page. He was still the Blackheart, January 2020. So, it's it is definitely nice to see him though riding at the top of his game again. It's I think where would you take him from here as a character?
Well, I mean, both Johnny Gargano and Tomasso Ciampa, you can't really talk one without the other sometimes. They both proved in their matches that they are ready to jump back in that title picture where they should be. But they can't fight each other, so I don't know how that's going to spin around and work. But
yeah, I mean, I think...
Well, having back on another title shot against Walter and have Tomasso Ciampa versus Walter 2.
I mean, I think you could do that. I think I would have him.
This has got legs. That match was fire.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be remiss if Tomasso Ciampa kind of disappeared for a little while and then invaded NXT UK once Walter's back. Once Walter's back there. Potentially to carry that feud on there and build to the next takeover, because you're right. I feel that the story is not complete, and I feel that story, logically speaking, would be I dressed like the Blackheart. Was I the Blackheart?
And Timothy Thatcher would be a big part of that.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Because obviously they want Timothy Thatcher in Imperium. So that's going to be part of the storyline. They'll probably turn on Tomasso Ciampa at some point and rejoin Walter.
Definitely the match of the night, I felt, and that's saying something.
I'm pretty
considering
sure he was part of Ring Camp at some point.
Timothy Thatcher. I think he may have been, because there were 5 of them originally, wasn't there?
Well, it started off as 3, so it started off as Alexander Wolf Walter and why can't I say his name?
Marcel Bartel.
The Bart guy.
Marcel Bartel. Now Timothy Thatcher's never been part of it. Was he at one point?
A running buddy, at least.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he may have been part of Ring Camp.
Yeah, that's the one I mentioned.
Oh, okay. Which is different obviously from Imperium.
But pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's the same gimmick. It's just got a slightly less. It's just got a slightly less censor baiting name. But no, I'll be very interested to see. How this plays out. I don't think that this is the end of this story, and I don't think it should be. And I will be interested to see how this goes. I can't see Tomasso Ciampa making a permanent residence in the UK, so ultimately, I suppose the real question is where would you take it? And that could actually be what stops this story from going further, ultimately, which is fine. You can't have a UK champion who's
it's going to need to be an end, and I think the end should be Tomasso Ciampa taking that title.
Yeah, but then what happens? He can't go to NXT UK and just live in the UK. He's not just like Pete Dunne. He can't just up sticks and leave. Bastard Pete Dunne. Hello, Jay.
Oh. Well, he proved that he took him to the limit, didn't he? Well, he took him to the limit, didn't he? He's been one of the only people to do that. I've not quite seen the whole Rampage Brown fight yet, but I'm assuming Walter won. Bit prelude.
Coffee Machine Ciampa, Walter. Final thoughts, Jay, on this after our technical difficulties there, technical issues.
I think storyline will continue. Timothy Thatcher will end up joining Imperium, but I do think Tomasso Ciampa is going to take the UK title and move over to NXT UK.
Really?
Because they don't really have anything for him on NXT.
Okay.
And he has the style, the capability to move over to the UK scene. So
He definitely has
Why
the
not?
style and capability, but I mean, the big why not will be his.
Dragunov.
The big why not will be his wife and his daughter, I think. You know, moving your whole family halfway around the world during a pandemic.
Well, I mean, all restrictions are going to get eased soon, and people who are in the entertainment business seem to have freedom to fly places. Like Pete Dunne's been going to Germany, and their COVID situation is all messed up. So
that's true. Interesting social commentary there from Jay. You can quote that. Jay said that Germany's Jay hates Germany, everyone.
Ooh.
Boo.
Well, it's also I'm going to Germany for a holiday, and that's happening.
Yeah, we were going to do
Don't
that.
hate Germany,
We were going to do this in 2020, actually, weren't we? We were thinking about it. Was it you I was thinking of going to Germany with?
I don't know, but I do want to watch WXW.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that live in its native tongue, as it were. Regardless, this was a great match. Probably the match of the first night, as far as I'm concerned, which is quite a tall order, considering Pete Dunne and Kushida's masterclass and the fantastic 6-man Gauntlet Eliminator match. We don't finish off the first night because there's 2 more matches, but we continue the first night with a match between the grizzled young veterans, James Drake and Zach Gibson, Legado del Fantasma, Raul Mendoza and Joaquin Wilde, and MSK, Wesley and Nash Carter in a triple threat tag team match for the vacant NXT Tag Team Championship. Try saying that fast 10 times. Jay, thoughts?
This was really a match for MSK and GYV, wasn't it, really? Because
Yeah.
LDP, I've abbreviated all their names, clearly.
Yeah.
They've all got 3 letters as well, which seems to be a thing at NXT at the moment, but there we go. And then LDP just seemed to be the filler tag team, just there, just like adding extra little bits that they could, but this was a match for MSK and Grizzled Veterans for sure.
I think so, yeah.
If you know what I mean.
I completely agree. I mean, we both know what the 2 members of Legado del Fantasma are capable of. You know, Raul Mendoza, of course, being you know, WWE kind of stalwart since 2016, and of course Joaquin Wilde absolutely lighting up the indie scene with his run as DJZ.
How insanely good has he got since this faction came about?
I tell you what, if you were to look at his work and DJZ's and say which one of these has been wrestling since 2003 and which one of these has been wrestling since 2016, the way that this has been presented to us, you wouldn't think Raul Mendoza was the younger of the 2 or the least experienced of the 2. I mean, obviously, it's quite clear that taking somebody... Sorry?
It's come over leaps and bounds. Like,
yeah.
I mean, he was okay, but ever since this... Well, he's run 2 veterans for sure, and 2 of the best high flyers, so they're going to be able to give him lots of pointers.
Yeah. No, he's exactly that. Exactly that.
More of an all-rounder. He used to be a high flyer, but yeah, he's definitely all-rounded himself now. Yeah,
and honestly speaking, I don't think you could do better at the moment than that kind of pairing in regards to those 3. It wouldn't be a pairing, but that faction, I don't think you could be doing better than having Raul Mendoza in that position with those 2 veterans. Saying that, it was a match that belonged to the Grizzled Young Veterans and MSK. This was probably my first time seeing MSK in a while. I have seen them before, contrary to what I said on our previous show. I did remember them once they came out. Yeah, all in all, a very well put together match. It was well paced. The story was good. Grizzled Young Veterans, obviously, playing their old trick book. MSK trying to keep the pace of the match up. Legado del Fantasma kind of there, just injecting that little bit of controversy in order to alter and adjust the pace as the two warring teams needed. So it worked really quite well. It wasn't necessarily as heavy a spot fest as I expected, considering Legado del Fantasma.
That's because obviously the Grizzled young veterans, that they were there to ground everybody.
And that's what I liked about it.
They did.
Well, I mean, Triple H is always a bigger fan of storytelling than he is of the flippy do spot fest that you'd expect to see on the tag team scene over at Jacksonville, and I think that was reflected quite nicely. There was that extra bit of storytelling happening there,
and that's what the Grizzled veterans can provide, especially. Why do I always forget his name? And he's my favorite one.
Zach Gibson. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of Zach Gibson, of course, speaking of Zach Gibson, it is very easy to see those guys wrestle and know that Zach Gibson is the one that everyone's got their eye on, and I think that's pretty obvious. And there's big things planned for this guy, massive things planned for this guy. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Well, first tag team titles. They will be the next champions. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
absolutely no doubt.
And I think it will be to. You're coming out of WrestleMania. You want a team like MSK to be kind of the guys that are on all the trucks when people see them and say, "Oh, I remember that."
That's the thing. Match. I'm really happy for them because their momentum started in Impact and they've just carried it over to NXT and they just ran with it, and it's great to see.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when we start approaching the next takeover, when we start getting to that Money in the Bank kind of time of year, when they are just cramming a takeover randomly in there, like they seem to have been doing for the last couple of years, I think that we'll see the Grizzled Young Veterans take it in a one-on-one match, and then that gives them or a team versus team match, a two-hander, and I think that will give them that ability to say no one can beat us one-on-one, and that can be the thrust of their run effectively.
Exactly what I was. Because their styles do mesh together quite well, because obviously you've got the ground and pound British style with the high flying, so it all kind of does mesh together.
Really does. They're a great team, and they're two great teams really. And Legado del Fantasma, they just kind of added that extra bit of spice without necessarily stealing the spotlight too heavily. Legado del Fantasma felt like they were there to satisfy those people who might have seen either MSK as too green or Grizzled Young Veterans as too slow. And Legado del Fantasma just added that extra bit of kind of, without me sounding too insensitive, Tabasco sauce to kind of just light this match and put it on that level where it could go 15.5 minutes during a card this stacked. So yeah, really enjoyed it. Any more thoughts on that match before we move on to the main event of night one?
No, they smashed it. That's all I've got for that one. Absolutely smashed it.
Final match.
Looking forward to the match between MSK and Grizzled Young Veterans in the future. But yeah.
Yeah, it's got to happen. Final match of night one before we take our first break of the afternoon. Raquel Gonzalez with Dakota Kai versus Io Shirai, the champion. The singles match for the NXT Women's Championship. A match that, for a main event, being the second shortest match on the card, 12 minutes and 56 seconds. What were your thoughts on this match overall?
Apparently they have more planned. Apparently time was cut short for this match. But still they maximised their time. I was really impressed with Gonzalez in this match. Absolutely. She already proved that she does deserve to win that title.
Well, Raquel Gonzalez.
Did a good job putting her over as well.
Raquel Gonzalez has been on a bit of a tear since her turn, hasn't she?
She has. I did expect Dakota Kai to make her lose or win, but she got sent to the back pretty early. And then we had that crazy spot off the score, wasn't it, where she did a crossbody where she just collided.
Yeah, I mean,
with Raquel Gonzalez.
I think
looked painful.
I think what I liked about that was the timing of it and how well put together the entire piece was, because, I mean, obviously we all saw the skull and thought someone's coming off the skull or someone's going through it or one of those things. And then we looked a bit closer and realised how expensive it looked, so we realised someone was coming off it. And I kind of had it in my head that it was going to happen on night 1 because of TV, to kind of get people over to Peacock to watch night 2, which is on Peacock exclusively. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, whether it was going to be Sharai or whether it was going to be...
UK it wasn't. The UK was on BT.
Sorry?
In the UK, it was just on BT Sport both nights.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, BT Sport have a different agreement, but obviously they tailor it to the American audience, so it was always going to be night 1 that happened on. I couldn't tell whether it was going to be Io Shirai or whether it was going to be Kushida who came off it, but I knew that one of those two people were going to come off that skull that night. It looked great. It was well timed. It was well placed. The match felt a bit rushed around that spot because obviously they needed that spot. But yeah, I enjoyed the match.
Yeah. I really enjoyed how Io Shirai was able to obviously cut down Raquel Gonzalez and really lay into her in the corner. That was really interesting to see. So it just made her basically make Io Shirai put her over slightly before she lost the title. Like, she can beat her, she just came up just a bit short. Kind of feel to it. Yeah,
that makes sense. So, I mean, what more can you say? It was first night. What would you say as a standalone show? I mean, obviously it was better than it was better than a usual takeover, than a usual NXT episode, and a good way to see off Wednesday nights for NXT. I think the two main questions are: was it better than?
They left with a win, didn't they? So
they left with a
win in the ratings.
Yeah, of course. Well, they always wanted to do that, and it was just how they kind of set it up, wasn't it? But yeah, was it better than the Dynamite that it was going up against? First off, I think is the first question.
Yeah and no. Yeah and no. I mean, obviously we had AEW say Buddy Club on AEW TV, so that's interesting. Called Bucks, Kenny Omega, Doc Gallows and Anderson Buddy Club, which was interesting.
That was interesting. More Forbidden Doors opening.
More Forbidden Doors opening. BC versus BC.
Could happen.
It's happening. We knew it would at some point. But no, NXT. I think NXT took this one, just for the sheer fact of the wrestling in general.
Yeah, that makes sense. I tend to agree with you. It was definitely better than a normal night of NXT. It was definitely better than a normal night of NXT TV, and better than probably what they put out for the last year on NXT TV mostly. Dynamite was a good show. It was a good Dynamite, but it was an episode of Dynamite. This was an NXT takeover, and it felt like an NXT takeover. And I think that's the important point. That's very hard to pull off when you're doing it for 2 nights in a row, and one of those nights is on TV, and the other night is a network exclusive, effectively, meaning that you have different sets of broadcast rules and guidelines to kind of deal with. And we'll get into the second night very, very shortly. I think it's time we took a quick break. Jay needs a new bottle of San Miguel. I'm going to decide whether I'm going to get a scotch or a coffee. So scotch or a coffee? What a question. I could have a Scottish coffee.
Good, you could put your hands together.
We
Your
buy
hands together.
Scottish coffee. That's how they talk in Scotland.
We buy egg.
Yeah. Down to Scotch factory. Oh dear me. I'll be back. Offending more
okay.
regional
That's
dialects.
the end of night 1.
Yeah.
Rich is going to work on his Scottish accent, and then we'll be back.
See you guys very, very shortly. Gonna just cut to a break, which is going to be advertising my Shoot 'em Up channel, because that's the only break I've got queued up.